I would never let a future partner put a finger up my ass.
But aren't you curious what a male G spot orgasm would feel like?
Not in the slightest, dude. I'll be honest with you. I'm not not
Really?
even close to interested. No, not at all, dude. Are
You
you?
wouldn't try it at least once?
No, not even once.
Fair enough. Understandable.
I mean, yeah.
Understandable.
I mean, I totally get it. If you want to try it out, do you want to try? Do you want to try?
um, I think at least once
At least
I'd
once.
try it. It has to be like
Oh, come on.
a long
Uh,
term partner.
at least once. If you're going in there, at least once. You're probably gonna do it a couple more times. I feel like.
Well, I try it once. You know, I think there's no harm in
Yeah.
trying things at least once. Well,
Yeah.
most things at least once. I think
Mm.
when you try heroin, your life's downhill from there. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm curious because apparently it's one of the best orgasms you'd ever have as a guy. But I don't know how valid that is.
Yeah,
So,
where have you heard this from? Reputable sources, I I take it.
yeah, I'd say that.
For sure.
Maybe I don't know,
Yeah.
but segue.
No! Oh my god.
Opening intro. No. But yeah, we were talking about the
Well,
future. Now let's hop to
why
the
don't
past.
yeah, why don't we just really quickly burn that bridge about getting into the specificities of the fucking male G spot. Why don't we move on to actually just
I love that fucking segue. So good. Good
yeah.
transition.
Great. It's
Burn
great.
that bridge. Yeah. What a great.
Yeah. So yeah, we guys, in case you didn't, in case you're fucking stupid, we're talking about burning bridges. So here we are.
Oh, I don't think they
Uh,
could have told with the whole Benjo finger up bum question
yeah,
mark.
it's hard. It's hard to tell. It's a little bit convoluted that way,
Yeah,
But
you gotta keep things on edge, you know. Definitely.
we like to surprise our audience with
True.
you
True.
know, we like to keep them on
The
edge,
quality
literally.
content.
So yeah. um, I'm not one to. I haven't burnt a lot of bridges. There have been a few that have just naturally collapsed over time. I don't know if
Mm,
you would call that burning bridges. But on on the flip side, Alex, you've burnt quite a few bridges, haven't you?
yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
so.
Tell us tell us more about the great experience of that.
Um, well, I think in the context of burning bridges, it's not necessarily well, there is the aspect where you go out of your way to let them know you're burning that bridge and you just be very upfront about it. If you're more of a confrontational person, which I sort of am, but I didn't figure that would be the best response. Um, I sort of figured since I wanted to move past a former identity of myself and go forward. In order to do so, you'd have to unlink yourself from certain aspects of your life, you know, and that may include friendships that may or may not be really good friendships, in general, mainly just because you sort of form them out of necessity, or they sort of form themselves mainly just because you see the person on a constant basis. So even then, in my sense, those aren't meaningful friendships. But then there's also the notion of friendships that aren't good for you, which is something you should also consider. Um, and when you sort of consider that, you sort of realize do I need these things in my life? And if you don't, I then it sort of leads you to the position of whether or not you should burn them for yourself, or as you think, let it collapse over time. Because if there's no meaning or substance to it, it'll definitely collapse. But if you take a more proactive approach and burn them, it's more of you removing that connection from that person for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
So, in a sense, it's such a whenever you say burning bridges, it such a has a bad connotation, right? Because
Yeah.
it makes it sound like you're you're being destructive or you're destroying things that supposedly have a good connection. And I don't feel like that's always the case. It's like, oh, you're burning bridges with people. Like, yeah, shut the fuck up. Like, let that one. It's what you want to do as well, right? So it's like your choice in who you maintain friendships with. You don't feel an obligation to anyone. Um, like you shouldn't feel an obligation to anyone. And then also like it's also for your consideration of how you perceive like the friendship. And you know, coming out of like an environment that, in my perspective, was very toxic. Um, Once again, I'm reiterating that it's my perspective, so it's my point of view, and my point of view has been influenced by a lot of things in life. So it's it wouldn't hmm, be fair to like say that it's an accurate representation, but it's how I viewed things. And coming from, I'd say, a very pessimistic person, I view things very negatively, and in order to sort of detract myself from that persona, I felt like it was necessary to actually burn bridges with people because these people haven't really contributed anything to my life. They just been there in the background more than anything. Um, and like, there's nothing meaningful with our friendship. It was just more out of necessity more than anything. And when you burn these kind of bridges, you sort of free yourself of any how do you say that? You sort of free yourself really in a way that makes you feel less anxious, I'd say, about like the whole idea of what these people may think. Because just in my mind, if someone is in my friend group or someone I know or like friends, then I would put their opinion slightly higher than like a fucking rando, right? And I think that's fair. You'd put like the opinion of your friend uh higher than, some random person you'd meet, right? Um but in that sense, these the opinions of my friends or people I consider friends, I valued them because I sort of had like this thing that they were in a better position than other people. So it was always like a constant battle for me to like, come off as a certain kind of person to them, you know, so then they would see me in a better light. And that's not exactly the healthiest thing in the world because you're not being a truer version of yourself or a more accurate representation of yourself to them. And it's only for like the sake of like looking good for them. So then whenever you ask for something and they ask for it, and you don't really like get it, and yeah, like in that sense, like it wasn't necessarily a good thing for me. And so I figured for my sake, I decided to, you know, burn those bridges. Um, yeah, and thinking about it, like, do I regret doing these things? Like, no, not really. Um, I think it led to my growth and development as an individual, not having to rely on these kinds of connections in a sense as well. And it sort of leads you to sort of develop yourself because now you don't really have like a fallback. You know, you're sort of left in the wide world by yourself without like some sort of um, certain click to like just go jump back into. And I'm not saying that I burned every single fucking bridge because then I wouldn't be talking to you if I did. But
Yeah.
like you get rid of things that are more baggage than anything. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, you sort of like you take off the heavier weights so you don't necessarily end up drowning. Well, that's a very bleak way to look at it. Yeah. Hmm.
I've got a few questions because you said quite a few things there.
Mm-hmm.
First, I want to start off with like, so when you burn bridges, were there other bridges? Because I know for some people, burning bridges can uh, be a difficult ordeal for them
Mm-hmm.
because it means that you kind of you not kind of you're cutting out a person from your life,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, in order to move on. Were there some bridges that you thought were harder to burn than others?
Well, the block button always fixes that, but that's another thing. Um, I figured so. You sort of think to yourself like, I spent a lot of time with this person. I hung out with this person. I devoted time to this person. Why would I have to like leave this? Like I opened up myself to this person, and you sort of like wonder, is this the right thing to do?
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's difficult. It's definitely difficult because you're putting yourself in a position where you have to like look at a friendship in a cost and benefit analysis, I'd say.
Mm.
And you have to think to yourself like, would keeping this friendship provide more benefit for me, or would it cost more for me? Now, I'm saying this in a selfish way, mainly because there's some times in life where you have to be selfish.
Which is not necessarily bad, by the way, to be selfish.
No, it's not. Um, but there will be times in life where you have to be selfish. And well, I was selfish quite a lot of life, but I chose this time to be selfish for a good reason,
Yeah.
because I wanted to move past and move forward, and I couldn't do that by having you know um, these certain chains still onto me, because in a sense it's always going to bring me some sense of guilt, or it's going to bring me some sense of like agony thinking about certain kinds of people and things like that. And if I remove that, then I'm less likely to be dwelling on the past, less likely to be thinking about like the what ifs, the what if, the buts, and more of like planting my foot down in the present.
Mm.
Yeah,
Uh, Interesting. Do you think that you were able to like completely burn these bridges, or are there like remnants of the bridges still in your life that you kind of see and you're like, oh shit, I remember that like brings up some bad memories and things of that nature.
yeah. There's always going to be things that remind you about the past. I think. Um, as much as you try to like differentiate yourself and who you were in the past and the events in the past, in some cases, those moments define you now, or not necessarily define you, but they've built the steps to make you who you are today.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'm not necessarily saying that like um, I want to like remove every single trace of my past. No, it's not that. I figured at this point, there's a lot of things in life that you're eventually gonna have to deal with, and if you try to block them out, it's I think it's a matter of perspective on it, really. I try not to look at things as like really shit, but there are some moments that are really hard to like deal with. So it's obviously better to sort of not have to think about those, because it sort of just puts you into a cycle and puts you in like a really bad mood for the day.
Yeah.
But if you change your perspective on some things, right, especially as time goes by, you sort of view them as like character building moments, and you think to yourself like, yeah, that sucked, but it made me who I am today.
Mm.
Um, and like that's not you can't necessarily apply that to every single aspect, right? But there's obviously some things that may be too painful for you that you just want to avoid in general, you know. And I do that. Like there are some things I don't want to associate myself with,
Yeah.
mainly just because like it just sends me back like a couple of years ago, and I'm just like, ugh, I don't want
Of
to
course.
think about that.
Which brings us back to our topic of ignorance, by the way, because
Ooh,
well,
Alex being
this is
ignorant.
no, but in this case, it's good. It's a great thing to be ignorant because what's the point in keep being aware of an old memory that brings you nothing but bad vibes, bad juju,
Dude,
you know,
exactly, the bad juge, bro. No, it's
the
because
bad juju.
like the
Yes,
thing
sir.
is like it's sort of that, it takes up brain power and mental capacity that you could be spending on yourself now to make
Yeah,
yourself better, but you're instead spending that on thinking about the past and how easy it is to sort of put yourself into like a wallow, like a self wallowing and self pity mindset for the next couple days. So like, oh, woe is me, for I have suffered. It's like thinking about like what happened like 2 years ago when you said to like the waiter, "Thank you, enjoy your meal too,"
oh
and
my
then
god.
it's like, yeah, and you think about that, it's like, woe is me, like you're gonna be like
Dude,
shit for like a while, right?
do you get like physical reactions to memories like that, like super cringe memories? You're
Oh,
just like,
dude, it makes my
oh,
stomach churn. It makes my stomach
it's,
churn. It's like,
it's great,
ugh.
dude.
Like, yeah, like you don't have the capacity to think about every single time you said you two to a fucking waiter, right?
Yeah.
So, it's better to not think about it and be ignorant to these kind of things, because how much energy can you truly devote to certain things in a day before you're like tired? And if you
Yeah.
most of your energy is being devoted to like things in the past and how it's dragging you back, you're not gonna do anything productive for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, in a sense, that's why you burn certain bridges, because those bridges remind you of things that you once were, or remind you of the events that once happened to you. And those connections are sometimes not necessarily what you need in life.
Yeah.
And like,
Um,
I think like at the end of the day, burning bridges is not that bad. Like, it's
no.
fine, really. It's it's more of like, as long as you have the right reasons for it. But obviously, the right reasons vary from person to person.
They do. And it also depends on who's on which end of the bridge, by the way.
True.
For one person it could be the worst thing ever for them. Also, at the same time, I'm just like imagining that you too situation with the fucking waiter. The waiter is just like, "Hey, can I take your order?" You're just like, "Yeah, you too." Wait, the waiter's like,
Oh,
"What's that? What the fuck did you just
yeah. At
say?"
that point, just I'm gone. I'm gone. I,
Dude,
I,
I'm
I,
out
I
of there.
demand to stop existing if I say that. If I
You
say,
just
yo, let me take your
disintegrate.
order.
It's like Thanos did. Thanos snap. Goddamn.
No,
But
no.
it's interesting how you talk about burning bridges because most of the time people would refer burning bridges to people like relationships, and that is probably one of the most common cases in terms of when
Mm-hmm.
someone says burning bridges blatantly they're probably talking about people. But the way you put it, it seems that burning bridges is also applicable to not just people, but more abstract things, if you will, like memories or certain times in the past, or maybe certain ways of thinking that you don't necessarily agree with. Like it seems that burning bridges is much more diverse in that sense. And like, uh, would you say that
Mm-hmm.
burning bridges uh, on that kind of wide of a scale is well, actually not would you say, would you agree that burning bridges is applicable in that kind of scale or like magnitude?
I definitely think so. I sort of see that, like, if you have an event or an idea or a personality or a character trait, right? There's always going to be things that interconnect to that character trait or personality or that idea, and connect to other things as well. Because, like, where did you get your sense of, like, kindness, right? Some people are more kind than others. And where was that instilled upon? Where maybe from, like, teachings or, like, experiences from their parents or through their lives, that it sort of builds up their character trait of being kind. And I sort of view that, like, these character traits, there are some moments and some experiences that build up to these certain events, ideas, ways of thinking, that if you burn, to put it bluntly, it sort of
Yeah.
detracts the idea or the way of thinking or the trait. Um, it either makes it smaller or maybe bigger because you're unlinking some negative experiences, which could have an effect either way. And like yeah, I do think it's very broad. And I think it can be applied in like a multitude of ways, like you said. And I think the main part is it's in a sense it's the removal of a link, right? I think is the key essence that I want to take the definition as. So like the removal or burning of a link between two ideas, two thoughts, two relationships, um, in which the person normally does it for like the betterment of themselves, whether that's selfish or not. Um, or in other scenarios, which is like a wide variety, like cutting out toxic people in your life, or cutting out your own toxic traits by cutting out certain toxic memories or toxic people, toxic habits. And I sort of think of it that way. And it's not exclusively cutting out toxic things. It's also, I think, in a sense, can be used to cut out positive things as well. If you're adopting toxic traits, then you start cutting out positive habits for yourself and positive things, which sort of reinforce the toxicity. So it's like it's a the two-way street. I'd say definitely.
Hmm. Hmm. That yeah. Well, that's wait. I had something in mind. I just lost it. Oh my fucking god! It was like right there too. I was about to spit some bars, but I
Dude,
fucking
spitting some bars.
shat it out instead. What was it? Something about. Okay, so burning bridges doesn't because the term, or not even the term, but the word burning implies that not all parts of the bridges, not all parts of the bridges, not all parts of the bridge will be gone. Instead of saying disintegrating bridges, which at that point, which literally would quite mean that the bridge is just straight up gone. If you burn a bridge, I'm sure, like we've already kind of touched over it briefly a while ago, but there are remnants of the bridge left. More often than not, would you say that these remnants are rather positive or negative things? I guess it would be depending on the relationship between you and whatever that thing is, whether it's a person or something else, right?
Mm, mm. That was really good. That's a good thought.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I actually, ooh, that's actually pretty good. I would like to say that, okay, okay. So when it comes to like the idea of remnants of the bridge, I think that's actually quite accurate of a representation now. Because, in a sense, as much as you try to disconnect yourself from certain things, there's always going to be the reminder, right?
Mm.
As much as you try to disconnect yourself from like a past version of yourself or disconnect yourself from like certain people, there's always going to be something in life that's going to remind you about it. And then it's just going to hit you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's going to be like, it's like nostalgia, right? It's like, oh, wow. It's either really good or really bad.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then, in a sense, like, it varies as well, whether or not the thing that you burned was a good thing or a bad thing. Um, like, like if you burn a bridge with someone and, you get reminded about, like, the good times you've had with them, uh, through, like, some like let's say you went on picnics for them with them for example, and then next thing you know you went on a picnic with someone and you got eerily similar vibes to it. It sort of like gives you the nostalgia of like what it used to be like hanging out with that previous person before you burnt that bridge. That's a reminder for you of something that you genuinely enjoyed and happened in the past. It may not be an accurate representation of what the entire friendship was like. It may have been not that happy-go-lucky and it's just like representing like only the good moments because in most cases people don't remember a lot of the negatives or actually don't remember a lot of the positives to be honest, but it's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the remnant thing is good. I like that a lot because it makes sense now that you think about it. Because you can't truly remove something from your life. Like,
Hmm.
no matter what, you're always gonna carry an element of. You're gonna always carry an element of like previous friendships, previous experiences with you. And there's probably just gonna be something really small and unconscious, like thought that's like in you that sort of affects how you perceive the world. But yeah, I really like that. That's really good.
Thanks. Yeah. Uh, Speaking of friendships, because you brought up an interesting thing about how um, you may not remember all the negative parts of the friendship, but you might remember some really great memories. Speaking of friendships that have been with you for a while,
Mm,
so let's say you take a friendship from middle school and you bring it all the way with you until you're in your late 50s or something, and something happens to your friend, or maybe you guys even take it till both of you guys are dead. um,
great.
yeah, it's very. Let me put that imagery in your guys' head real quick. But uh, because there's a certainty, like for sure, that that bridge will not that it's gonna be burnt, but there's a definitely like a good chance that that bridge will be used less. Now, do you think that uh, bridges that you take with you
Hmm.
uh, from a much younger point in your life, uh, do you think that these bridges, I guess you could say, quote unquote, get renovated into something that suits more of what you are at that time and space? If you know what I'm, if you understand what I'm trying to get at,
Mm.
yeah,
Well, you're not the same person as you were 10 years ago,
yeah,
and even you 10 years ago was not the same person you were 15 years ago, right?
yeah,
So when you look at that, there's obviously going to have to be some form of change. Obviously, like you change, right? And then there's obviously going to be the development of new personality traits, new experiences, new habits, new goals, and in a sense, you and your friend, when you're both friends younger, I do think your bridges over time will get stronger because you're sharing a lot of more experiences.
mm,
Um, and you sort of realize because like children have such benign conversations.
that's very true.
It's like, yo, this Power Ranger slaps, brother. And then this guy's like, no, the blue Power Ranger better. And then you go into an argument about which fucking color Power Ranger's clearly
Yeah,
the best one. Clearly it's red or black. But that's just my opinion.
true.
Um, but yeah, you get like these like the conversations are meaningless. Well, they're meaningful to the kid. But then as you get older, you start, being you start becoming more aware of like goals,
Mm,
things you want to do, desires, fears, and you share that. You start sharing that with the person who you have a connection with, and it's once again referencing one of the other episodes. I think there's like the seven represent like love like seven levels of like friendship or like love, right?
yeah, yeah.
In which if you start sharing things that are more deep and meaningful, it sort of escalates your friendship. Um, because now it's a new level where you can like you're obviously more comfortable to share things with someone. So if you have like one of your friends since from like childhood, start telling you his fears, when you're both like 18, and like telling you some of the deepest, darkest fears, because it's like you're sharing, that sort of solidifies the bridge, because
Yeah.
now you've created like this emotional connection. And then even then, when you're like in your 20s or 30s, you may not talk as much, but you still have a like sense of nostalgia and connection with that person, and they may be a bit more different than what they used to be like when they're 18, but the bridge is still there, and
Yeah.
whether or not it gets strengthened or weakened really depends on um, the both parties. Really,
Mm,
for some people, not talking for a while doesn't really affect the friendship because they'll still be like things have never changed. But for some people, it does. Um, and it really varies from person to person.
yeah.
But yeah, I think when you establish like a connection with someone, it's sort of hard to really let it go unless you like
Mm,
really, really neglect it. Which
yeah.
is like everyone's guilty of that, you know.
Yeah.
People get caught up in their own life. I'm not like for me, I don't find it like disappointing whenever my friends like don't talk to me because like I don't do the same thing as well. It's because like you're so preoccupied with life. But then when you do find the moments to actually share and connect with them, like it feels like things have never changed or not changed, but like think like you it's like you're never gone to begin with.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
But then there's obviously things that will definitely affect a friendship, such as radicalized political views or something like that,
Oh my gosh.
which is like definitely gonna throw something
God damn.
like it like fuck me like it'll definitely throw a friendship like the bridge will definitely fucking collapse in itself like just from the
Yeah.
sheer weight of like how contra like how mm, like how what are like what is it how different fuck I'm so stupid how different the opinions are. I was trying to find like a more academic word to describe it, but I just couldn't
Yeah.
think of it. So I'm just saying different. So
I mean,
more
you're good.
different,
Yeah.
more different. But yeah, like,
Yeah.
or like radically different. Yeah, radically different.
There you
Yeah.
go. Radical.
Because like obviously that just becomes a very large strain in the relationship. Because if
Yeah.
everything is going to be political, right? Well, in a
Yeah.
sense, it is. But if everything has to be made political in every single conversation and has to be like there's this level of tension, then I don't know what party would want to continuously keep that level of tension. And they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna wean off this. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think.
Yeah. Uh, it's kind of interesting that you talk like when you said like political radically political like different fucking views, dude.
Mm,
Okay, I
mm-hmm.
don't know the yeah like different views kind of affect a relationship or a friendship. It kind of makes me think that about how bridges they're not necessarily unique to a person and an idea, but more often than not, these bridges usually are shared between a person, an idea, a time in the past, or like a space in the a certain a specific space. Like for example, for me, whenever I think about my friends here, or the guys who I used to hang out with a lot, but now they're all kind of just scattered across the world. Um, Whenever I think about them, I usually associate that thought with where I live right now, which is the place I've lived in for basically a majority of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I associate them with certain specific parts as well of places that we used to go to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting to me how these bridges are more often than not shared, but yet whenever we talk about burning a bridge or kind of cutting out toxic people in a life, in our life, we're kind of uh, it's a shared bridge between that person and certain things and certain ideas and certain places and in a certain time, and I think it's just super interesting because I don't think it's really thought that much about in terms of of course burning a bridge, which is as we now know, like it's just not unique to a single person or to a single idea. It's shared most of the time, which kind of leads me to another question of like uh, the burning bridges with let's say because the past is a whole thing, and I feel like sometimes people get holed up in the past a little too often. I'm guilty of that myself.
Same.
um, yeah, do you think that burning do you think that it's possible to burn a bridge with the past? And I say a bridge because I assume that there are multiple other bridges that are connected with the past, such as other people, other ideas, other feelings, other emotions, and things of that nature. Do you think it's possible to burn a bridge with the past? Because, like you said, the past kind of layers a foundation for us to be where we are now, to shape who we are now. Do you think it's possible to burn a bridge in the past? Uh, uh, yeah.
No, I don't think
No.
so. No, definitely not.
Hot
I
take.
tried. I've tried. I've tried
Like,
so hard, so
yeah.
hard. All those nights thinking in bed, just like trying to like get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's. I think trying to burn, trying to just get rid of the past in general. Um, in a sense, is trying to get rid of experiences that have made you who you are today.
Hmm.
And by doing so, you are neglecting the fact, or you're neglecting the moments you've had that consist of your character. Um, I think it's also on viewpoint as well. Because if you're always going to be viewing the past very negatively, you're going to try hard to disassociate yourself from it. And you sort of don't realize that even though you're doing better now, compared to what you were doing back then, you're too focused on the past and too focused on erasing that identity for yourself for yourself more than anything. Then you're actually realizing the position you're in. And I think like the way you look at certain events in the past as well is one thing as well, because in most cases, if an event is recent, you're gonna still view it negatively.
Hmm.
But as time goes on, you sort of realize that it was bad, but it wasn't that bad.
It's a funny meme now.
Yeah, it's just tell me about it. But yeah, you sort of realize that like let's say some life changing event happened to you with like a partner or with your family. Um, it in that moment it was very impactful, and it creates like this period of time where there's like this lag time where you still feel it. But then after a while, you sort of, when you're older, you sort of look back to it and see, wow, that was pretty intense. And you may have some bad feelings towards it, but it's definitely not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
And in a sense, those experiences, sort of led you to figure out more about yourself and your resilience or lack thereof. And, sort of shows you what kind of person you are. And whatever viewpoint that may be, that's completely up to you, but you can't sort of remove that from yourself because I don't like to say that suffering creates character.
Mm.
I think I think unnecessary suffering doesn't create character.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a sense, there's an element of suffering that sort of creates resilience in a person and builds character. Um, am I saying that it's necessary for you to suffer to be have more character? Definitely not. Suffering's not
Fucking
cool.
hell.
Suffering's not cool, but it's a great way to find out how resilient you are to certain things, and
Yeah.
it's a testament of your ability to keep going. But yeah, like I feel like I'm repeating myself, but at the end, I sort of see it that like you can't really get rid of the past as a whole. You could burn certain elements of the past that influence you today.
Mm.
Whether those are like um, negative moments, not negative moments, but like negative habits for yourself that you slowly had in the past, that you had in the past that like you still carry on to this day. I think those are on an individual scale or a micro scale are more capable of being dealt with, but the past on a macro level can't really just be like wiped out. It's
Yeah.
just something that you have to acknowledge and you have to come to terms with. But
Yeah.
like the individual things, the certain friendships, those can just be like scrubbed out. I think.
For sure. Wait, I just got a piss. I'll be right back. So we were talking about burning certain parts of the bridge, like if it was possible to burn a bridge from the past, which we now kind of feel like. It's not possible to burn a bridge from the past, but rather it's possible to burn certain elements of a bridge from the past.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think that's a great take, to be completely honest with you, because like you said, the past really kind of molds and forms us who we are now, and yeah, I think that's a good thing. You have anything else to add?
And this is all very abstract.
It is very abstract.
But the pleasure of being human is that we can always think in the abstract.
Yeah.
Um, it's like you going to sleep tonight and you waking up tomorrow, is that the same version? Like, are you the same person? And you know,
like,
it's the
yeah,
same kind of way you can think about the past. Are you the same version of yourself that you were 5 years ago?
yeah,
Biologically, no. Mentally,
mm,
no.
yeah.
So then, how sure of you? Like, you know, there's a whole long thing that we
It's
say
a whole
about like,
thing.
yeah, it's a whole thing. But it
Well,
doesn't necessarily mean that you have to feel trapped, right?
mm,
You don't have to like just because you formed a relationship or a friendship with someone and you invested time into it, but you're not getting anything out of it, no return, then there's no point being in that, right? I think some people are very afraid of just being lonely. They'd rather be with shit people than be alone. And in my mind, that's worse than being alone. So much worse. So much worse. Granted, everyone's different. Some people are more social than I am, but I think one thing that I sort of want to reiterate is just being comfortable with being alone and taking these steps towards um, avenues to make yourself feel better, you know.
yeah.
And whether that's cutting certain parts out of your life or cutting certain people out, fucking go for it, champ. You know,
Yes, sir.
life is too short to be dealing with a bunch of bullshit on a daily basis, especially with like toxic people or manipulative people. Get rid of that shit. Because at the end of the day, you only have a limited set of time on this earth, so why spend it dealing with unnecessary shit like that? If you're gonna end up being alone, just be alone. Because you're 10 times as likely to be more productive and have a better mindset and healthier life than being with those kind of people. Now, sure, you probably have been manipulated and gaslighted to a fucking great extent, but it just takes a sense of awareness to understand that. And then I think afterwards, you sort of find peace in being alone and find peace in having the time for yourself because you're now capable of planting more capable of planting a firmer presence in the present.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't be afraid to burn bridges. Learn how
Yeah.
to
Don't.
swim.
Oh, I like that. Holy shit. That should be like a
Ooh.
bumper car, like a bumper sticker, you know?
My kid goes to dude.
No, but I totally agree. That's great. That's a great way to put things. And especially like if you are alone, but you really, 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 really want to look for people to socialize with, people to talk to, understand that you as a person, like your personality, use it as a filter to filter out people who possibly would not mix well with you.
Mm.
Because it's at the end of the day, like everybody is different, but there are interests that people share. And if you're able to use your personality to that extent of it becoming a filter and kind of just finding people who share the shame and the shame the
Shame,
same
shame,
who share the shame no who share the
shame,
same
shame. Yeah.
who share the same interests as you, then it's just like it'll I guess you could say it could be an easier time for you to find people to talk to and socialize with. Obviously, it's a little difficult to do that right now, but that being said, yeah, it's also it's try it out at least or something.
Definitely.
But
Like, I feel in a lot of cases, like for example, let's say you like painting miniature figures like Warhammer.
yeah,
um,
okay, yeah, oddly specific.
all these specific. Like, if that's something you enjoy doing, would you really enjoy hanging out with someone that's taking MDMA on the weekends, like twice a week
Oh
or something like
my.
that? Like, no, you want to find other people that have the same. Well, unless you do that, then go for it. But I
Yeah,
don't advocate drug use. I'm telling you more of like if you find people with like the
I
same
do.
interests as you, like you don't settle for less,
Yeah.
right? Like there's times to be picky and there's times to be like having no standards, right? And when you're actually looking to make genuine connections and lifelong connections with people, that's when you get picky. Don't just take
Yeah.
any random bum on the street, right?
Yeah.
Because don't do that. Well, you can talk to them, but their conversations are like another level. They're like a whole different dimension. That's
Oh,
probably
dude.
all the drugs they're taking, and
Yeah.
just being drunk constantly. But very interesting, very eye opening.
It's
Would
entertaining. Yeah.
recommend talking to
Yeah.
the homeless people of Melbourne. Um, yeah, but
God.
off the rails.
Truly.
But yeah, like you know, if the people you surround yourself with don't want to see you succeed or don't care about you succeeding, don't surround yourself with these kind of people.
Yeah.
Don't settle for less. Treat yourself, kings and queens. You deserve it.
Absolutely. And when you once again kind of what's it called? Use that filter of your personality, and you start filtering out people. People might view you as someone with high standards. No, you're probably someone with standards, which is higher than some. Well,
People.
a good yeah, the good amount of people, and so by their standards, I guess you're kind of a high standard person, but no, you just have a set of you just have a filter on. You have your standards, you have people that you're looking for, and some people may not view it as that, but at the same time, you just who the fuck gives a shit if you have your own filter, and you shouldn't care.
Mm.
You know, not the, but it is what it is. Like burning bridges is very, it can be healthy. It can promote development to you as a person, especially. Which is something that I think is a little bit overlooked. Some people would probably think of like cutting toxic people out, or burning bridges as like this thing where it's just like you're just cutting this person out because it's just not good for you. And to that extent, they probably aren't good for you. But at the same time, you kind of have to understand why you're burning bridges in the first place, or why you're cutting out toxic people in the first place. Sure, when you're cutting toxic people out of your life, it's because they're toxic. And I feel like the reason there is pretty fucking blatant. But at the same time, to view it from a quote unquote selfish standpoint, it would be to further develop yourself as a person. And I think that's just super important to think about, especially when you decide to burn certain bridges, or when you decide to burn certain parts of a bridge. So yeah.
Definitely. That's all I gotta say, baby. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, tune in for Alex's 5-step guide on how to say someone fuck off.
Oh
but
my goodness.
There's not much to say. Like, if you're confrontational, you're confrontational. So if you want to go message the person saying, "I don't want you in my life," blah 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 blah, and then you block them, then like, power to you, brother, or sister. But if you're not a confrontational person, like, it's a bit hard, and it's a bit like you feel guilty, definitely. But
yeah,
sometimes you have to watch out for numero uno, which is yourself, right? And if you don't watch out for yourself, you don't take care of yourself, you just be a fucking doormat to people, which I absolutely fucking hate. That's a whole other episode. Alex hates people without spines.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I can just go on about how I hate weak-willed people.
That's correct.
I don't mean weak-willed people as in like struggling to continue. I mean weak-willed people that just bow down to everything, that have like no opinion because they're so scared of like. Okay, I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, awareness. Yeah, I'm just saying that you have to have the strength to do certain things, right? And you have to have the strength to make these tough decisions. And if you know you need something for yourself, take it, right? It's your initiative. No one's going to come around and say, you should do this. Well, they will, but no one's going to do it for you. You do it yourself. And that's how you get a lot more out of life, is you do things and you take things for yourself instead of just moseying on along the river flow. Because the easier it is to go along the flow, you're going to end up wherever the river points you. Yeah. Where you could actually carve your way there, when you could like do things you want to do. So take the initiative. If you got to burn a bridge, burn that fucking bridge.
Easier. Alright, here's I guess the last question of the fucking episode. If you could wrap this whole episode, or like this whole thing about burning bridges, in a nicely presented analogy, how would you say that? Like, granted, burning a bridge is an analogy in and of itself.
So an analogy of an analogy. It's pretty meta. Pretty meta,
Yeah,
not
it's
gonna
super
lie.
meta. Super fucking
Um,
meta.
what analogy have I not used yet?
Oh damn, it's Mr. Analogy over here.
Well, okay. I think it's pretty hard, actually. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I would imagine. I mean, I guess like you could use the burning bridge, like burning a bridge analogy, and just kind of like build on top of it with what we've discussed in this episode, if ever. I'm asking you because I don't know. I don't know what
Nor
I
do
would say.
I. Nor do I.
That's someone else on the
um,
street.
I actually don't know, but there is an analogy to be found.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, let's just cut to where I find it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Hey
this
guys,
is
so
thinking moment. Thinking
taking
moment.
moment.
Maybe something about like string,
String?
like like a piece of yarn, and you just snip out pieces and tie them together. I don't know if this makes sense.
No, that's fair. I can see how that would work. Or maybe you could talk about how like pieces of a burning bridge, the remnants that are still there, you can use that to build a new bridge, or you can use that as foundation for who you are now, or something along those lines. I don't fucking know.
Or just don't use bridges and start learning how to swim. Become a strong, independent person now.
How about this? Just don't be abstract.
Don't be abstract.
Yeah.
All right, we're not being abstract, fellas. Okay. I think just be honest with yourself.
Fair enough.
Okay, non-abstract.
Take over here.
Take. Just be honest with yourself. Um, think to yourself, what do you want out of life, and look at the things around you and see whether or not they build you up or bring you down. And if that's the case, then you have to, in some cases, take action. You can't always just mosey around and just wait for things to happen. But to each their own.
To each their own. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I don't know what the fuck to say. So
I don't know.
I'll leave that to you. I'll be honest, but yeah, that's I guess yeah. On that note, for the analogy, that's basically what we have for this episode. We didn't run out of time. Let me just say it up front. We did not run out of time, but we just ran out of things to say. So
Don't worry.
don't worry. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed the episode, and see ya.
Tune in next time to see why Alex hates doormats. All right. See ya.
See ya.